51 over here. I hope you're having a splendid day wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to the Motorsport Lounge, where we talk everything Formula 1 here on Turbo Fox Races. Guys, we're in for a good one. Today we're talking about the Sao Paulo, which I still believe should be called the Brazilian Grand Prix, but in any case, we have to dive straight into it. It was the final racing weekend this season, where we had a sprint quali weekend, so we've got a lot to talk about, a lot to run through, so let's get straight into it. And remember, if you enjoy yourself throughout any part of this wonderful podcast, remember to drop a like down below. It's only going to take you a nifty 2 seconds, and let's jump straight into it. So first of all, we're going to talk about the sprint qualifying, and here are the results for the sprint qualifying race. Now, just one thing that I need to remind you guys of. Remember, Lewis Hamilton started at the back of the grid after there was faults found with his rear wing, deeming it illegal for qualifying. So even though Lewis got pole, he had, according to the FIA, he had an illegal rear wing, and he was disqualified from qualifying, putting him at the back for the sprint quali / sprint race. So here are the results of the sprint race. Valtteri Bottas won the sprint race with a time of 29 minutes 9 point. Oh boy, guys, clearly I can't talk today. Let's try this again. Valtteri Bottas won the sprint race for Mercedes, and just so by the way, I'm going to call it a sprint race, not sprint quali, because that sounds stupid. Won the sprint race in a time of 29 minutes 9.5 seconds, gaining 3 points for his world championship tally. Max Verstappen was P2 for Red Bull, 1.1 seconds behind Valtteri Bottas, taking 2 points for Red Bull and himself. Carlos Sainz was in P3 for Ferrari, 18 seconds behind Valtteri Bottas, who won, taking the final point for the sprint race. Fourth place was Sergio Perez in Red Bull, 19.7 seconds behind Bottas. Lewis Hamilton was 5th for Mercedes, with Lando Norris 6th for McLaren, Charles Leclerc 7th for Ferrari, Pierre Gasly 8th for AlphaTauri, Esteban Ocon 9th for Alpine, Sebastian Vettel 10th for Aston Martin, with Daniel Ricciardo 11th for McLaren, Fernando Alonso 12th for Alpine, with Antonio Giovinazzi 13th for Alfa Romeo. Lance Stroll was P14 for Aston Martin, with Yuki Tsunoda and P15 for AlphaTauri. And your final 5 drivers were Nicholas Latifi in P16 for Williams, followed by his teammate George Russell in P17 for Williams. Kimi Raikkonen was in P18 for Alfa Romeo, and the rear end of the field was brought up by the 2 horses of Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin. Now, guys, jumping straight into the talking points about this sprint race. Now, the thing is, let's just quickly talk about the second Mercedes, Valtteri Bottas, because what a fantastic getaway from Bottas. He blitzed Verstappen off the line. There's been a thing with the Mercedes this season, guys, that it's as if it gets a better getaway when it's on the harder compound of tires, meaning the mediums or the hards, but specifically the mediums, because it's been insane. And in this race, where we know the Red Bull is stronger on the soft compound tire, because Bottas also had the softs on, Valtteri still absolutely outlaunched Verstappen. He was almost identical to Max on his reaction towards the lights. The Mercedes is just a bit quicker on that initial acceleration, but Bottas just immediately made sure that he covered off Verstappen so that Verstappen couldn't get into the lead. Just a fantastic getaway from Bottas. He honestly blitzed Verstappen off the line. There was nothing that Max could do about the Finn, and it was a fantastic launch and a fantastic sprint race from Bottas. Verstappen couldn't really do anything about him. He was just maintaining the lead, making sure everything goes well, and if Lewis by some miracle caught up to the front, which he didn't, Valtteri was just there to control everything, and he did an absolutely brilliant job for the sprint race. And honestly, it's a performance that Bottas can honestly be proud of. Now, the 2 Ferraris also bossed at the start. Sainz up to P2 and Leclerc up to P5. Now, Sainz was just making sure that, he was a thorn in the side of all the front-running cars this weekend, because he was always in the mix at the start, not just for the sprint race, but for the feature race as well. And I honestly... Sainz has impressed me this year so much. And guys, as far as I'm concerned, Carlos Sainz has to be the driver of the season. the amount of talent we've seen from Carlos in the past 3 years has grown exponentially year by year. But this year specifically, Sainz has honestly just, you know, stepped up to another level, and he showed that step up with the start, overtaking Verstappen, overtaking Perez, and hanging on to P3, defending from Perez. Even though Max eventually got Carlos, he still got a podium and 1 point. Though once again, I do not agree with the sprint quali points format at all, but still, he kept a Red Bull behind him for that entire sprint race. And the Red Bulls, and especially the Mercedes, were untouchable this weekend from the rest of the field. The Mercedes being the untouchable car, but the fact that Carlos could keep Perez behind him, knowing how much faster that Red Bull is, fantastic drive from Sainz, just like it was from Bottas. And honestly, Sainz deserved to start P3 on the grid. Just a phenomenal performance. And talking about his move on Verstappen, it was absolutely epic. A tad aggressive, but still epic. No contact was made. He just went for the lunge, had confidence in the Ferrari's brakes and the Ferrari's front end, and just sent it up the inside of Verstappen. And I think Verstappen really got caught off guard there, because he's not used to really other drivers doing that to him. But it's just to show that it can be done to Verstappen. It just needs to be the right situation. But that move that Sainz made on Verstappen was absolutely epic. And another thing I want to talk about is the second Ferrari of Charles Leclerc and the McLaren of Lando Norris, with literally their race-long battle. The entire sprint race, you couldn't separate Leclerc and Norris, and it was epic. Literally, the only time there was a little bit of separation between them was when Hamilton caught them up from behind. And we'll talk about that now, because obviously that is the elephant in the room. But, I mean, Norris and Leclerc were constantly, you know, just duking it out, making sure that their cars, they tried to place their cars in the best possible position so that they couldn't overtake each other. It was just such good, clean, hard wheel-to-wheel action from Leclerc and from Norris. It was honestly something special to see, and I hope next year we get more of it, because with Norris's massive step up this year, and like I honestly think Norris as well as Sainz can finally be categorized as being on the same level as Verstappen, Leclerc, and Russell. It's truly epic to see these young guys just fighting it out, keeping it clean, keeping it proper. It was honestly just fantastic to see. And that race-long battle between Norris and Leclerc, what a battle, what a battle. Now obviously Norris did come out, you know, obviously better than Leclerc, but still there was nothing to separate those two young guns, and it was honestly epic to see. Now let's head towards the elephant in the room, which is Hamilton. What a drive. P20 to P5 in only 100 kilometers. Wow. Literally wow. Guys, remember, the sprint race is, instead of 300 kilometers, which is the normal Formula 1 race distance, it is only a third of the length, which is 100 kilometers. And for Lewis, especially in the competitive field that we've had this year, to go from P20 to P5 and only 100 kilometers, that is something absolutely absurd. Honestly absurd. And we'll get to the main race in a second, but this weekend in general, in my opinion, is one of Hamilton's best drives of his career, if not the best. The only other races that comes to me off the top of my head, if I think about Hamilton just absolutely bossing it, is Turkey 2020, probably Silverstone 2008, and honestly, other than that, I can't really, off the top of my head, really think of these Hamilton performances that have just literally made my mouth fall open and not be able to close. The moves that Hamilton made this race, all his moves were exceptionally pulled off, especially that move on Norris, absolutely trusting that W12 and the front end of that car, and he just sent it up the inside of Norris. Norris didn't expect it, and probably that was the move of the weekend. That was honestly the move of the weekend, because it was just, the Mercedes at Brazil was honestly in my opinion, just untouchable. With its new power unit, the straight line speed, and everything that the Mercedes package is just what Mercedes have figured out for Interlagos this weekend. It just worked. And it worked to exceptional extents. And I mean, we saw it in the main race, but we'll get to that. But just Lewis's sprint race performance was absolutely bonkers. And P20 to P5, if that race literally, I think, was 20 laps longer, he also would have won this one. But obviously it's not, because it's a sprint race. And the thing is, Lewis still had, he still had a 5-place grid penalty for changing an engine component, which he started with in P10 for Sunday's race. So just Lewis Hamilton once again just showing how absolutely amazing he is behind the steering wheel of a Formula 1 car. Just nothing except talent and just absolute skill beyond compare. Well done to Lewis Hamilton. But guys, that was the topics for the sprint race. Now let's head in towards the main race. So the results for the main race were Lewis Hamilton won the main race for Mercedes in a time of 1 hour 32 minutes and 22.8 seconds, taking the full 25 points. Max Verstappen was in P2 for Red Bull, 10.5 seconds behind Lewis in second place, banking 18 points. Valtteri Bottas was in P3 for Mercedes, 13 seconds behind Hamilton, basically starting to reel in Verstappen at the end of that race by monumental margins, taking 15 points. Sergio Perez was P4 for Red Bull, and he got 13 points because he also took fastest lap, giving him 1 extra point, and he was 39.9 seconds behind Hamilton. Charles Leclerc was in P5 for Ferrari, 49.5 seconds behind Hamilton, taking 10 points. He was followed by his teammate Carlos Sainz in the second Ferrari with 51.8 seconds behind Hamilton, and taking 8 points. Pierre Gasly was in P4 to be lapped, Alpine with taking 4 points. Esteban Ocon P9 taking 2 points, so a good weekend for Alpine. And Lando Norris just really, that puncture at the beginning with because of the contact with Carlos really cost him, but we will talk about that. Lando Norris still came back and fought up to P10, taking the final point for McLaren. In P12 was Sebastian Vettel for Aston Martin, followed by Kimi Raikkonen for Alfa Romeo in P12. Brilliant weekend from Kimi once again. George Russell was P13 for Williams, with Antonio Giovinazzi in P14 for Alfa Romeo. Yuki Tsunoda was in P15 for Alfa Tauri, with Nicholas Latifi P16 for Williams. Nikita Mazepin was in P17 for Haas, actually beating his teammate Mick Schumacher, which was the final running car, who finished in P18, and just like his teammate was 2 laps behind the leader. And your 2 retirements were Daniel Ricciardo for McLaren and Lance Stroll for Aston Martin. Now, the Constructors' Championship standings after the Sao Paulo Grand Prix weekend was Haas Ferrari was still in P10 on 0 points, with Alfa Romeo Ferrari in P9 with 11 points. Williams Mercedes were in P8 on 23 points, with Cognizant, Aston Martin, Mercedes in P7 on 68 points. Alfa Tauri, Honda and Alpine are still tied in P6 and P5 on 112 points, just like they were the previous round when they were both tied on 106 points. This is got to be a very close fight, in my opinion. P4 is McLaren Mercedes on 256 points, starting to lose a lot of ground to Scuderia Ferrari in P3 on 287.5 points. Red Bull Racing Honda are now down to P2 at 510.5 points, and leading the Constructors' Championship is Mercedes AMG Petronas Racing on 521.5 points. Now, the Drivers' Championship standings after the Sao Paulo Grand Prix were Nikita Mazepin in P20 on 0 points, behind his teammate Mick Schumacher, also on 0 points. 18th is Antonio Giovinazzi on 1 point, behind Nicholas Latifi in P17 on 7 points. Kimi Raikkonen is in P16 on 10 points, with George Russell in P15 on 16 points. Yuki Tsunoda is in P14 on 20 points, and Lance Stroll P13 on 26 points. Sebastian Sebastian Vettel is in P12 on 42 points, and Esteban Ocon is in P11 on 48 points. Now, breaking into the top 10, you've got Fernando Alonso in P10 on 62 points. Pierre Gasly is in P9 on 92 points, with Daniel Ricciardo in P8 on 105 points. Just behind Carlos Sainz in P7 on 139.5 points. Charles Leclerc is in P6 on 148 points, with Lando Norris just 3 points ahead in P5 on 151 points. Sergio Perez is P4 on 178 points. Valtteri Bottas P3 on 203 points, with Lewis Hamilton in P2 on 318.5 points, just a smidge away from Max Verstappen in first on 332.5 points. That's 14 points, guys. It's not a lot. If this championship has taught us anything, that is not a lot of points at all. Okay, guys, just one thing I quickly want to mention before we jump into the talking points. Currently here in South Africa, it's raining cats and dogs. It's bucketing down, and there is a bit of thunder and lightning. So if you guys hear a slight, little kadoof in the background, I do apologize, but I unfortunately do not have a soundproof room. But in any case, let's go on with the podcast. So, talking points. Red Bull couldn't have had a more perfect start. And what I'm referring to is Perez getting past Bottas and Sainz, and just Red Bull leading 1-2 in absolute control of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix after lap 1. Literally, this was their race to lose from that point onwards. But we all know a certain 7-time world champion, that had a very strong engine and was basically functioning at 200%. But in any case, they had this race under control, and Red Bull couldn't have had a more perfect start. Sergio aced it off the line, just like Max, and they just went into that first lap knowing that they had to lead the way, because if Bottas by some other miracle kept the lead, this would have been a much harder weekend for Red Bull, and they knew that. So Red Bull absolutely bossed it off the line, both their drivers, Checo and Verstappen, and they did what they had to. So a beautiful start from the Red Bull boys. And just the thing is, it felt to me like Bottas was a bit asleep at the lights, because Verstappen jumped Bottas at the start, and at T4 Bottas just goes wide and Perez gets past Bottas like it's nothing. Now obviously I understand Valtteri was defending for his life, but when he got on the brakes, it was very clear that it was way too late, because you can see in the replay Max's car starts to slow down and Valtteri clearly goes ahead of him and only then brakes. He was never going to get that car stopped on heavy fuel and tires that are not at optimal temperature. So I think Bottas cost Mercedes a lot of, he caused a lot of brain scratching at that moment, because he also ruined that tire that he locked up. Not completely, but it was reasonably damaged. So it was a very tough situation for Mercedes from that spot onwards. Now, the third thing I want to talk about from the start is Sainz and Norris's contact. Now, obviously, for anybody who's a fan of the Norris and Sainz bromance we've had ever since those guys have been teammates, I'm sure this was a bit of a sad moment for all of us, because obviously I know Lando Norris has got a massive fan base. I'm more on the Carlos Sainz side of stuff, and it's not just because he drives a Ferrari. I've liked Sainz ever since he started racing in Formula 1. I love Carlos, and it was sad to see those two best friends make contact. But when we talk about the incident, guys, obviously the first thing that happens on social media is everybody's like, no, that is Sainz's fault. No, that is Norris's fault. Oh, blah, 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 blah. It's as if everybody forgets how to reason. And what the stewards decided was the right choice, in my opinion, because it was a racing incident. Lando went for the move around the outside, and Carlos started making room for him because he realized Lando was going to go off track. But Lando just started to come back into Carlos's path too quickly. If you look at the onboard replay, Lando was already starting to move over to the left-hand side when there was nowhere for Carlos to go because he had cars on his inside. So honestly, just a racing incident, and Norris, in my opinion, being a little bit over eager. But you know, they are no longer in the same team. These things are going to happen more, and it was just sad to see it. But hopefully these two can keep it to a minimum, because their friendship is something very special. And I mean, even after the race, they made jokes about it. Nobody was mad at anybody. One thing that I think Sainz and Norris do understand is that their friendship is worth more than, you know, just one race where one guy came out worse than the other. And I mean, Norris still got a point. I know it could have been much more for McLaren, and literally they are in rival teams, but their friendship is the thing that comes through. And I think a lot of modern situations out of Formula One, just modern day everyday life, people can learn a lot from Sainz and Norris's friendship, because friendship in today's time is something that people don't cherish. So getting a little bit off topic of Formula One there, but that is a fact. People don't cherish their friends and friendships anymore. Go learn a bit from Norris and Sainz. In any case, Hamilton got up to P7 at the start. Brilliant with Vettel, Ricciardo and Gasly. Now, Vettel, Ricciardo and Gasly, it's as if they just went with Lewis. But Lewis, just like Red Bull, well, just like Perez and Verstappen knew they had to get in front of Bottas, Hamilton knew the more cars he overtook on the first lap, the easier his race would be. And he did exactly that. Anywhere from P14 and upwards, guys, the midfield is so close that Hamilton could easily have lost positions on the first lap, and yet he gained. So it was absolutely phenomenal from Hamilton. It was honestly phenomenal from Hamilton to go from P10 to P7 and slotting in right behind, who was it, the two Ferraris, Norris and Gasly. No, I can't exactly remember. The point is, Lewis he did what he needed to do, and after he could settle in with the rest of the drivers, he started making his move and started his march forward. But that is the start that he absolutely needed. Now I'm jumping a bit further on in the race, and it is the incredible battle between Perez and Hamilton once again. Guys, Perez and Hamilton side by side is something exceptional to witness. I mean, if we look back at Turkey, and any point where those two this year have gone side by side, that is what good, clean, hard racing is. That to me is like any of Alonso's battles this year, whether it's been with Russell, whether it's been with Hamilton, whether it's been with anybody on that grid. That is the type of racing that we proper F1 OGs, the ones that know what F1 is about, this is the type of battling we live for. Whether you're a Hamilton fan, whether you're a Verstappen fan, whether you're a Mercedes fan, whether you're a Red Bull fan, whether you just enjoyed the battle, no matter who you support, it was absolutely exceptional to see. How Perez got past Hamilton on that second straight, I do not know. I think it's like Brundle said, he basically just emptied his battery and it couldn't recharge enough to defend from Hamilton the next lap. But Checo did absolutely everything he could to keep that Mercedes behind him. But we all saw the Mercedes was an absolute rocket in a straight line, and Mercedes, they figured something out with the setup of that car this weekend that just suited Interlagos like no other car that was there this weekend. And it's absolutely fantastic to see Hamilton and Perez battling hammer and tong, and not a slight bit of contact being made. Good, clean, fair, hard wheel-to-wheel racing. Absolutely phenomenal. Oh, absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. This is the battling that we F1 fans live for. And now we're jumping onto another topic that it made me bury my head in my hands, and this was very silly mistake from Tsunoda on Stroll. Just sent it on a closed door. Guys, there was no way that Yuki was going to make that move. And Yuki has already had such a bad year. Honestly, if he has a season like this next season, he's guaranteed to lose his Formula 1 seat, in my opinion. But it's moves like these that he can't afford. That gap was clearly... Sorry. Ooh, jeez. Sorry for the yawn. I'll just edit that out. it's moves like these that really is hurting Tsunoda's reputation. Because at the start of this year, the hype around Tsunoda was immense. And there were even people that were confident in the fact that he was going to beat Gasly this year. And obviously the complete opposite happened. Gasly absolutely annihilated Tsunoda. But it's moves like this that really take Tsunoda's Formula 1 seat into question. And I really hope that this is stopped, because like I said, if Tsunoda has a season a season like this next season, that's a big tongue twister, he's guaranteed to lose his Formula 1 seat. And Tsunoda deserves to be in Formula 1. The amount of talent that kid has is immense. And honestly, I really hope that he just comes out of the blocks next year, punching, kicking, scratching, clawing, going for everything in a safe manner and not making silly mistakes, and having a proper season next year. I really hope Tsunoda can provide next season, because in my opinion he deserves to be in Formula 1. But that move on Stroll, that door was never not going to close, and it just ruined his and Stroll's race completely. So I was very disappointed to see Tsunoda just send it up the inside. But we move on. Now, wait a minute. Oh, I skipped a topic. Sorry, guys. That should have been the topic in front of the incredible battle between Hamilton and Perez. Not the point. Let's jump back onto that Perez-Hamilton battle. Because, I do apologize for swapping those two topics, but Perez's defense of this season has been incredible. And I'm not just talking about against Hamilton or Bottas. When Sergio Perez has to defend, it's just below his tire conservancy level. It's insane the amount that Perez. I can't speak today. It literally breaks my brain to just try and think about Perez's defending capability, because he's out of this world when it comes to defending. I will honestly put him at an Alonso type level when it comes to defending, because he makes that car as wide as the track itself. And if you don't, unlike Hamilton, if you don't really race him hard wheel to wheel, the only way you're going to get past him is if you play dirty, and nobody wants to see that. So to get past Perez, you're a talented driver, and that it's not just your car's performance. His defending this season has just been impeccable, and it's honestly something that Sergio can be proud of this year. Now we're jumping on a fair bit, guys, because we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the lap 48 turn 4 incident between Hamilton and Verstappen, where Verstappen just absolutely yeeted Hamilton off track. Because, guys, if this is the way Verstappen is going to drive to the end of the season, he's not going to deserve to win this World Championship. And I'm sorry if you don't agree with me with that, but that's a fact. I just spoke about, not just in the main race, but in the sprint race as well, that we live for hard wheel-to-wheel action that is not dirty. If there's not contact, unnecessary contact being made. Obviously contact sometimes is unavoidable, but when it's unnecessary contact, or literally driving somebody off the road and you yourself don't make the corner by a country mile, that's not racing. And honestly, I'm glad that Verstappen got penalized for that, because that was a horrendous display. No, sorry, he didn't get penalized for that. The stewards brushed it off. Excuse me. Verstappen should have been penalized for that. But that once again makes it clear that the stewards will do anything to keep this fight alive. Because let's face the facts. If Verstappen got a 5 or 10 second penalty, he would not have been second. Valtteri would have been second. It would have been a Mercedes 1-2. Because at the end, Bottas was catching Verstappen at a rate of knots, sometimes up to 1.5 seconds a lap. And Interlagos isn't the longest track in the world. In race trim, it's about a 1 minute 10 second lap time. And he ended 3 seconds behind Verstappen. If Verstappen had a 5 or 10 second penalty, it was a slam dunk P3 for Verstappen, and this championship would have looked a lot different. Yet the stewards didn't interfere, and it feels to me like Verstappen is starting to go into a mode of, I can and will do anything to defend my position, even if it means I have to drive dirty. And that to me is not on. If we see something like this in the final 3 races of the season, which is Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Abu Dhabi, I will honestly be on the train of Verstappen that's not deserving to win this world title. And before anybody goes in the comments and starts rudely insulting me, Verstappen has had a phenomenal season, yes. Verstappen has been the driver to beat this season, yes. But as soon as you have to revert to tactics that are not sportsmanlike, that is the instance where you show that you are not mature enough to be a responsible world champion. That is the exact time when you show that you do not yet have what it takes to be a world champion. When you have to revert to unsportsmanlike behavior to secure a championship or a title or whatever sport, whatever you need to obtain, that is the moment you show your true colors, and that is the moment when you start becoming undeserving of things. And because of Hamilton's exceptional performance, and literally because of this move that Verstappen made, I'm glad that Hamilton won this race. I'm glad that Hamilton put Verstappen in his spot. Well, put him in his place, as well as Red Bull. Because no matter what Verstappen does, Red Bull sings his praise. Red Bull are basically giving Verstappen, they're making sure that he believes he's the golden child and that he is faultless, which is pathetic, because nobody is faultless. If you're human and not machine, you are not faultless. And they're trying to, and yes, Max Verstappen is one of the best drivers on the grid. I still don't believe he is the best, but he is one of the best, and he deserves to be in Formula 1, and he deserves to be where he is today in a championship fight. But not if this is going to be his tactics towards the end of the season. And I know I'm going on a bit of a rant here, but this is not on. And to me, once again, and I'm going to mention this, and if you are mad at me, with all due respect, that sounds like a your problem. But I'm going to say this because, just like Matt Gallagher says, I'm not a fanboy, I'm passionate. You guys know, I don't support either Verstappen or Hamilton. I don't. They're not one of my favorite drivers on the grid. Neither are the teams Mercedes or Red Bull. You guys know I despise Red Bull, and I'm a Ferrari guy. But the reason I just said I'm not a fanboy, just passionate, is because Formula 1 is my passion in life, and I don't care who is in the championship in the championship fight. It can be the 2 drivers I dislike the most and the 2 teams that I dislike the most. But if it's good, clean, fair racing and it provides what we want, I'll support it. And like I said, I don't like Verstappen, but I've got a lot of respect for him. But if it's going to drive this way, I will lose all respect for Verstappen. Not just as being Max, but as a racing driver. Even my father, who's an absolute, my dad he can't handle Lewis Hamilton. He despises Lewis Hamilton. Even he said that was unsportsmanlike. That should not be accepted. That speaks volumes. And to all the Max fans, the thing that I want to get to that is going to upset a lot of people, the people that like Max Verstappen are all these new fans to Formula 1 that don't properly understand what the sport is about. All the fans that have come from Netflix, the Drive to Survive series, from seeing stuff on social media like YouTube and everything, coming to Formula 1 and saying they are now fans of Formula 1, those people that support Verstappen are all these new faces to the sport. And you guys, this is what you think racing is, but it's not. If you want to see what racing is, go watch Hamilton versus Alonso at Hungary. Go watch Perez versus Hamilton at Turkey. Perez versus Hamilton at this very race. George Russell versus Fernando Alonso at Austria. Go watch throughout the years wheel-to-wheel racing, and then determine whether that is what you want to see or whether you want to see dirty driving. If you're one of those fans that want to see a lot of crashes, a lot of safety cars, a lot of wheel banging, please go watch something like Demolition Derbies, because there's a lot of them in America. But don't watch a sport where it's supposed to be clean-cut racing. Remember, Formula 1 is the pinnacle of motorsport, not a pinnacle of a big bracket. It's the pinnacle of motorsport. This is the ultimate level which a driver can accomplish, and this should not be accepted, not in the slightest, because that is honestly, in my opinion, that is pathetic driving. And whether you're a Max fan or a Lewis fan, if you're a proper OG Formula 1 fan and you do know what Formula 1 is about and you still support Max Verstappen, you be you, boo. But be man enough to admit, and don't go on a Twitter or an Instagram or some sort of social media rant about everything being Hamilton and Mercedes' fault just because Max is driving hard. And this thing where everybody is saying that that's just how Max Verstappen drives, that's just how he is, it's hard racing. Excuse my language, and I'm not gonna bleep this, but absolute bullshit. That is not racing. That is forcing someone off track. That is like you sitting in your car on the highway and somebody just, without putting on their indicator, just comes on into your lane and forces you into the crash barrier. That's the exact same effect. And you want to tell me that is hard racing? No. And then people have the audacity to compare Verstappen to Senna. Yes, Senna was a dirty driver, but Senna could at least admit when he made a mistake. The only time that Senna never admitted a mistake was when he took out Alan Prost at the season finale at Suzuka. I think it was 1989. Or was it 1990 or 91? I'm not sure. But in that time bracket, that is the only incident where Ayrton Senna never admitted that he was wrong. But in any other situation where Senna made purposeful contact or forced someone off the road or realized that he was the guy at fault, he would apologize. I've never seen Max Verstappen ever since he's been in Formula 1, ever since his Toro Rosso days. I've never seen Verstappen once apologize. Not once. He's never apologized. He will forcefully try to, even though he knows he was wrong. And that to me is an ego problem. And if you're a Verstappen fan and you absolutely are going crazy in the comments of this video, insulting me and telling me that I'm just a Hamilton fanboy, say what you want to say, do what you want to do. But the fact that you are already on defense proves my fact that you know that I'm right. Ask any Formula 1 fan that enjoys and loves Formula 1 for what it should be, and they will tell you exactly the same thing that I've told you. Okay, but let's get off of the very deep and very intense talking subject. Let's go on to the next. Guys, like I said, this has been the first time I've really thought about it this way. There's 3 races to go. Max has got 3 races to prove me differently. Okay, he's got 3 races. So, did Verstappen ever try to make the corner? And one thing that really made me mad when the steward said that there was no investigation needed was, they've got literally all the tools at their disposal to look at every single angle of that Formula 1 car, and they didn't even look at the front to see how much Verstappen turned his steering wheel. If you look at any other time Verstappen went into that corners, even times where he was on the inside, his steering input was a lot more than what it was going into that corner, because obviously after the race, the halo cams were leaked on social media and you could see how much Max turned in. Max didn't even try to make the corner. He literally forced Lewis off the road. And like I said, it's not acceptable. The stewards were pathetic with this decision. No investigation necessary. What the hell? Verstappen should have had a slam dunk 5-second penalty, in my opinion. It's not even negotiable. I'm sorry, it's not negotiable in my opinion. The stewards this year, I thought last year was pathetic. This year's on a completely new level. And honestly, I'm starting to get to the opinion that Michael Massey shouldn't be in his job, in his position. I'm starting to agree with some of the teams and drivers that say Michael Massey should be fired. We never had these issues with Charlie Whiting. There was the rules were in black and white. If you overstepped a mark, Charlie Whiting called you on the name, you did this is your penalty, live with it. And if you didn't like it, you could appeal it after the race. But nowadays, it seems like the teams have more control over the race director than the race director has over the teams, which is wrong. But you know what? I think we'll make a proper podcast to talk about this. But still, Max should have gotten a penalty, and the steward's decision to say no investigation necessary, absolutely pathetic. Now, the fact that Hamilton still won after all Verstappen's antics is just a punch in the gut to Red Bull. That's a fact, and I've said it already. Lewis still outraced every single person on that track this weekend. And I know once again people are going to say, but it's the car, it's the engine. Lewis had an unbeatable car. No, he didn't. That is the result of driver and machine being one. That is what people like us F1 OGs live for. When a driver can absolutely boss a race because he knows what the car is capable of, he knows where the limits are, he knows what he can and can't do, and he's constantly on the limit. There wasn't one lap this weekend where Hamilton wasn't on max attack. There wasn't. Sprint race and qualifying, sprint race and main race, there wasn't one lap where Lewis wasn't flat out. And it was amazing to see. Honestly, I am just I was overjoyed to see Hamilton win in the fashion that he did. And like I said, one of the best drives of his career, without a shadow of a doubt. It was just absolutely fantastic to see. Well done, Hamilton and Mercedes. The fight is on. The fight for this World Championship is on with 3 rounds to go, and clearly momentum is on the side of Lewis Hamilton after this weekend. It is. I thought after Mexico, Verstappen would be the one having the momentum for the rest of the season. It's shifted completely to Hamilton. Completely, and I can't wait to see how this season ends. Hopefully Verstappen keeps his antics for himself. Now, the AlphaTauri and Alpine fight is also heating up. Like you guys saw when I read the live Constructors Championship points, they are equal on points for 2 races now, with 3 rounds to go. It can literally go any way between AlphaTauri and Alpine. But if AlphaTauri wants to win this, they're going to need Tsunoda to back up Gasly, because Gasly can't fly the flag alone, and that is the main thing. Tsunoda needs to start backing up Gasly. That is the end-all be-all. But I'm very interested to see how this fight ends. And obviously you guys know AlphaTauri is my 3rd favorite team on the grid after Ferrari and McLaren. But Fernando Alonso, which is my hero, drives for Alpine. So once again, I do not care who wins, but I'm very, very interested to see how this fight is going to end. And honestly, I do not care who wins. It's just going to be exceptional to witness. And then the final topic of this podcast. Gasly totally outraced Ocon and Alonso in those final 15 laps. Guys, the moves that Ocon made on those 2 Alpines were absolutely exceptional. Gasly was just so on fire on those fresher tires, and that AlphaTauri was clearly hooked up to Interlagos. There was nothing that either Ocon or Alonso could do. And once again, Gasly's driving talent and just how good he really is came through. And once again, it was mind-blowing to see. And honestly, Gasly deserves the world. That kid deserves a front-running car one day, because I still believe he will be able to win a world championship. Pierre Gasly, well freaking done, flying the flag for AlphaTauri like nobody else can. But guys, that has been the topic for this Sao Paulo Grand Prix weekend. Let's head into the driver ratings. So, the driver ratings for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix is, let's jump into the 2 horses. Nikita Mazepin, guys, actually, Mazepin really was gutted in qualifying when he once again got P20. And guys, honestly, I think this year has gotten to Mazepin. All the memes, all the mockery, all the insulting has really gotten to him. and I honestly think Nikita Mazepin is starting to turn a new leaf. And from my side personally, I'm going to stop teasing the guy, because he's still very talented and he can make a name for himself in Formula 1. But he beat Schumi this weekend. Good weekend from Mazepin. He gets a 5 out of 10, and Schumacher gets a 4 out of 10. Heading towards the two Alfa Romeos, Antonio Giovinazzi and Kimi Raikkonen. Giovinazzi 4 out of 10. Guys, not much to see from Gio this weekend. Just struggling with the car, and just a very, below average weekend for Giovinazzi. However, Raikkonen was fighting for points with Vettel and Norris and the two Alpines, and he had a good weekend, Raikkonen. He's only got 3 races now left in his career, which I still can't believe. But Kimi Raikkonen gets a 7 out of 10. Now jumping towards the two Williams, Nicholas Latifi had a very good sprint race, beating his teammate George Russell, but was nowhere to be seen in the main race. Latifi gets a 4 out of 10. And Russell was just behind Vettel and Raikkonen in P13, really trying to get that Williams into the points, and it was a good performance from Russell. He gets a 6 out of 10. Then heading towards the two Aston Martins, Lance Stroll, obviously with Yuki Tsunoda making contact with Lance, and Lance having to retire. He was fighting in the points, but unfortunately he couldn't get much done after his car was damaged and he eventually retired. He gets a 3 out of 10. And Vettel just missing out on the points. Good weekend from Sebastian. It's a 6 out of 10 for the German. Heading towards the two Alpha Tauris, just talked about the Tsunoda Stroll contact. It was obviously Tsunoda's fault. 2 out of 10 for the Japanese driver. And once again, Pierre Gasly just being Pierre Gasly. Awesome fight with the two Alpines, getting P7, getting the points that the team needs. Gasly gets an 8 out of 10. Towards the two Alpines, guys, they get exactly the same mark. Just a very good weekend from both of them, but the car did struggle for pace, so they had a little bit of a disadvantage, but still both got points, both had a good weekend. Both Ocon and Alonso gets a 7 out of 10. Now jumping towards the two Ferraris, obviously Carlos Sainz, a brilliant sprint race, very good main race, just couldn't match Leclerc over the full race length, and obviously the contact with Norris I think rattled Sainz a bit, but still exceptional weekend from both Ferraris. Sainz gets an 8 out of 10, and obviously Leclerc with the P5, just awesome weekend from Leclerc. He gets a 9 out of 10. Heading towards the two McLarens, Daniel Ricciardo not getting points, obviously retiring later on in the race with an issue, but at no stage in that race he was battling for points. So Ricciardo unfortunately gets a 4 out of 10. But Lando Norris, however, even though with him basically being mostly at fault for him and Sainz's incident, but still once again it should have been a racing incident like it was, and just Sainz Norris being the absolute animal that he's been this year, Norris gets a 7 out of 10. Jumping towards the two Mercedes, awesome weekend from Bottas, won the sprint race, good recovery in the main race to get P3 and nearly catch Verstappen. Bottas gets an 8 out of 10. And Hamilton, what else is there to give to Hamilton than just an 11 out of 10, guys? P20 to P5 in the sprint race after being disqualified from qualifying, and going from P10 to win the race, the main race on Sunday. It's nothing less than an 11 out of 10. If you gave him anything less, there's something wrong in your noggin. And then finally the two Red Bulls, Sergio Perez doing everything he possibly can. Once again, the battle with Hamilton was phenomenal, driving very well this weekend. Perez gets an 8 out of 10. And obviously Verstappen doing what he could, second in the sprint race, defending from Hamilton in the main race, shoving him off track a bit, which obviously you guys know I didn't agree with, and all these other things. It was still a proper weekend from Verstappen. He also, just like his teammate, gets an 8 out of 10. Now, let's go towards the team's ratings and the standings after the previous round at the Mexican Grand Prix. Well, the Mexico City Grand Prix was Haas P10 on 115 points, Williams P9 on 182, Alfa Romeo in 8th on 190, Alpha Tauri in 7th on 207, Aston Martin P6 just 2 points ahead of Alpha Tauri on 209, Alpine P5 on 220, Mercedes P4 on 228, McLaren P3 on 251, Ferrari in P2 on 258, and Red Bull led the way by 5 points on 283. Now let's see where these teams stand after this weekend's Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Haas are still in P10 on 124 points, Williams in P9 on 192, Alfa Romeo in P8 on 201, AlphaTauri in P7 on 217, Aston Martin in 6th on 218, Alpine P5 on 234, Mercedes 4th on 247, McLaren P3 on 262, Ferrari are still in P2 on 295, but they've gained 1 point on Red Bull and are only 4 points behind Red Bull on 299 points. Now, the Team Motorsport Lounge Predictions Championship, the 2021 Sao Paulo Grand Prix predictions were Melanie, and I typed her name double. Why did I do that? It's because I'm a ninkan poopy. Melanie said weather complications in qualifying, which we didn't have, Verstappen P1, which didn't happen, and a Ferrari top 7, which we got. 5 points for Melanie. I said Ferrari top 5, thank you Charles Leclerc, Alonso top 10, thank you Fernando, and a Vettel top 10, which unfortunately didn't happen. He missed out by 1 position, so I get 10 points. Jadepie said Red Bull takes the lead of the Constructors, which didn't happen. Max is on the podium, which did happen, and Ricciardo top 8, which didn't happen, so Jadepie gets 5 points. Boosted didn't send in any predictions, so he gets a big fat round 0. Jess said Hamilton beats Verstappen, woohoo! 5 points. Raikkonen points finish, unfortunately not, but was close, and a McLaren top 8, which didn't happen. Ricciardo retired, Norris P10, only 5 points for Jess. Demi also didn't send in any predictions, as well as Jonny. And then finally Janco said a Bottas podium, which happened, a Verstappen win, which didn't happen, and 1 McLaren in the top 8, which also didn't happen, so only 5 points for Janco. Now the standings after the previous round, the Mexico City Grand Prix, were Janco in P8 on 86 points, Jonny and Demi were tied for P6 on 91 points. Jess was in 5th on 96 points, with Boosted 4th on 102, Jadepie 3rd on 108, Turbo, myself in P2 on 122, and Melanie was in 1st on 144. Now the standings after this weekend, after the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, Jonny, Demi and Janco are tied in P8 on 91 points. In P6 you've got Jess on 101 points, P4 is Boosted on 102 points, P3 is Jadepie on 113 points, myself still in P2 on 132 points, and Melanie is now still in P1, but I'm closing her up slightly. I've only got 3 races to go. She is still in 1st on 149 points. And guys, one more thing before I say goodbye to all of you beautiful faces is the 2021 Qatar Grand Prix predictions. The first time ever Formula 1 is going to Qatar and driving at the Lusail International Circuit, which is actually a MotoGP circuit. But I think this track is more suited to Formula 1 than people initially think. I think we're going to have a good weekend. So let's read the predictions. Melanie said Verstappen on the podium, both Ferraris ahead of McLaren, and Mercedes podium. I said Hamilton dominates, Ferrari top 5, Ferrari outscore McLaren. Jadepie said Max on the podium, McLaren top 10, crash over the course of the weekend. Booster didn't send in any predictions, so hopefully he sends them in time for the race, but there's nothing that we have now. Jess said Perez wins, Mercedes outscore Red Bull, and Alpine and AlphaTauri in Q3, all 4 cars. Jeez, okay Jess. Then once again Demi and Jonny didn't send in any predictions, and then Janco said Max starts on pole, Hamilton top 3, and McLaren top 10. So guys, that is the predictions we have for the 2021 Qatar Grand Prix. Guys, obviously if the other 3 send in their predictions, I'll put them up on screen, but if you guys don't see anything, obviously they didn't send in their predictions. But guys, that has been this podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for staying till the end. Obviously, I do apologize a bit for my rant about Max, but I was just stating facts, and if it did upset you, I'm not going to apologize for that. Please don't be oversensitive. And guys, it's been a good one. We've got 3 races to go for this season. The championship battle between Verstappen and Hamilton, it's on. The fight is absolutely on. The fight between Red Bull and Mercedes for the Constructors is on. You've got still a little bit of a fight for P3 between Ferrari and McLaren, but I think if Ferrari outscore McLaren in Qatar, it's basically over. We've got the P5 battle between AlphaTauri and Alpine. They are equal on points. It's going to be a good end of the season. It's really going to be a good one, and I think we can easily look forward to what is waiting in store. But guys, before you go, please go check out the links in the description down below. Please check me out on social media. If you have friends that enjoy podcasts and love Formula 1, please share this podcast with them. Tag me in the post or the story, and I will give you a shout out on my in one of my future videos, as well as on my social medias. All the links in the description down below. Please check out my second YouTube channel, Forza Watch Gaming, for some non-racing game and non-racing podcast content. That is also a very fun channel. And make sure to check out my South African gaming clan, Falcon Gaming, for all to see everything we do here in South Africa in the gaming scene. While you're down there, if you enjoyed yourself at any stage throughout this podcast, make sure to drop a like down below on the video. It's only going to take you a nifty 2 seconds. And finally, if you are new to the channel and you have not yet subscribed, but you did indeed enjoy yourself, that's because you dropped the like. Why are you not yet subscribed, my brother or sister? Hit that subscribe down below, and don't forget to ding that bell to never miss a future video. It's gonna be a good time here on Turbo Fox Racers. Guys, those of you guys that didn't watch any of my videos over Christmas or New Year's, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys for the next video. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I don't have any final thoughts except that I am very excited for these final 3 races. Let's get it. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys next video. Cheers!